Alright everybody, hi, welcome back. I just want to show y'all today how to prep your palette. Alright, so I have just this old picture frame here and I want to show y'all how I set it up. I apologize as I am getting over a cold, so bear with my voice, but in any case, let's get started. So just to show you the supplies I have here, I am going to be showing you how I do my skin tones while we're going on. So I already have my colors lined up for my skin tones here, and just to show you the supplies here, so I have my oil paints that I'm going to be using. We're not ready for these yet, alright? To start out, you get an old picture frame. So I have this little picture frame. I already have 2 palettes, but I wanted to go ahead and get a new one out to show you how to do this today. So all you need is a picture frame. You want to look at the back of this picture frame and make sure it doesn't have any of the flip stands. And if it does, you'll just get a little screwdriver, unscrew it or whatever. You want this to be able to sit decently flat. Alright, and a little bonus is if you have these right here, after it dries, you can just hang them on nails on the wall and keep them stored and out of the way. So we have this picture frame here, that's about what we want. You're going to want a palette knife for when we do start mixing. I prefer the short little stubby ones, especially if you're using a smaller palette like this. It just helps take up less space. And you're going to want some paper towels and some alcohol. And shop towels are my favorite, alright? So you can use these for when you're mixing your colors with your palette knife. You just wipe it right off, but we're going to use it to clean our palette first and foremost. So you want to get off one of your shop towels. I like to fold it up and get some alcohol and just start wiping it down. If there's any dust particles or anything like that on your palette, that's going to mix right into your paint. So you want to make sure you get it nice and clean. Now I go ahead and clean the frame too, because inevitably some of my paint ends up on the frame. That's just how this goes. Now the nice thing about these glass palettes here, or just picture frames, is the fact that once you're done, you can scrape it off. Now I don't have my scraper with me right now, but all you need is to get a nice glass scraper, razor blade, anything that will work to scrape the paint off. That's what we want. Alright, so now that we've cleaned off the surface, we're going to turn it around. We want to have a nice neutral background. So if you have a gray paper, that's going to be your best bet. I don't. So let's see what we have to work with here. And I'm going to go ahead and clean the inside of the glass too, because it's a little dirty. So now I'm just going to put this right back. And the reason you want a neutral surface is because as you're going to find that there are colors that are going to look different depending on what surface it's on. Oh man, can I not get this from here? But if you have a neutral tone, then you won't have to worry about that as much. So if you're going on straight white, if you mix those colors on white and then you go in and you put them on a neutral gray or a neutral brown background on your painting, they're not going to look the same as they did when they were on your palette. So we need to have a neutral color in the background. Alright, so now we can get those out of the way. Our palette is ready now. So, now that our palette is 100% ready, we can start mixing our tones. So, just to show you, this is my range of colors that I typically use for mixing my skin tones. So, to start with, I like to start from the softest, lightest colors to the darkest, coolest colors so that I have a good range here. So to start with, I like to use soft mixing white. You can use titanium white if you want, but keep in mind as you are mixing these colors that the soft mixing white here is going to be a lot better at creating a lighter hue without washing it out. Alright, so just to start there. And then I have cadmium yellow. This creates a very beautiful bright yellow. We don't use a lot of this, alright? This is sparingly. This is only for adding brightness. Alright, so cadmium yellow. I don't think it's going to focus, but that's okay. And then yellow ochre. So yellow ochre is a great base for skin tones. All colors of flesh, unless you are creating a dead layer like zombies, whatever, is going to have yellow ochre. This is a really great base, just natural color that works really well. And then we have burnt sienna. So burnt sienna is a really nice color. Just to open it up for you and show you, it's a really warm brown color. It's very, very rich, and it makes a really beautiful base to creating any sorts of pinks that you want for a skin tone that won't be too bright, too vibrant, but going to be just the perfect amount of warmth. And then I have crimson. Now, crimson I barely use. This is only going to be used if I'm doing like the rosy colors of the cheeks or lips. Alright, I rarely use crimson because it is so bold and so bright. And like I said before, you can use burnt sienna to get most of your warmth into your subject. This, sorry if y'all can hear my kids, they're going crazy. But this is just a great way of adding a little pop of red color if you need it. And then we have burnt umber. This is the holy grail of skin tones. So burnt umber is going to be your base. This is amazing. It creates the warmth and richness and the neutrality. In fact, it's kind of all of those in one. It has, obviously, it's a beautiful brown tone, and it's incredibly versatile. So it is a bit on the warm side in this tube. There are several different versions of burnt umber. You just have to kind of look around and find the one you like. I tend to stick with Winsor Newton or Master's Touch. Excuse me. But you can use whichever you prefer. And then, of course, we have our ivory black. I use very little of this, but this is to help neutralize any tones that are too vibrant. Ivory black is good at just creating a gray wash over things, and you don't need a lot of it, but it'll go a long way when we start to do our darker tones. And last but not least, I have ultramarine blue. So ultramarine blue is going to be one of the best ways that you can neutralize something that is way too dark. It is a staple. Every palette should have ultramarine blue. It is been used for centuries to create beauty and neutrality. It is a gorgeous color, and I know it seems like a strange one to add to skin tones, but it works. Alright, it's all about balance. So now that we have those in mind, you can go ahead and start putting them on your palette. Now I like to keep them in order and then start mixing in the rest of the place. So starting with my white. I put some on there. And you can just continue down the row. Alright, so now that we have all our colors mixed out, we're going to start with a nice middle tone. So I always grab my little palette knife and I'm going to scrape some white. Now I get a nice good chunk of it and I stick it right in the middle. We want a lot of this because we're going to stretch it out in both directions. This is going to end up becoming our medium tones, light tones, and dark tones. So we're going to grab equal amounts of our yellow ochre, a good amount of our burnt umber, a half amount of black, a half amount of our burnt sienna, and a tiny touch of our ultramarine blue. Now once you have all those on here, you just use your knife and start working them together. Now I think I might need more of my yellow ochre. Just look at this and try to figure out what the medium tone is for your subject. I am trying to do a full broad spectrum, so I'm going from the palest pale to the lightest, or the darkest dark, trying to ensure that we have a nice full spectrum here. And I think I did a decent job. This is a pretty good middle tone. I'll just try to scrape the excess. Now I do need a new palette knife, so mine's kind of getting worn down. If you have a brand new one, it's going to scrape a lot better than mine's doing, but feel free to experiment with palette knives until you get one you like. So this is a nice neutral color. Now we are going to take it into thirds. So 1/3 on this side and another third on this side. I got a little too much there. Okay. So now we have it broken up into thirds. This one is going to be our light side. This one is going to be our dark side. I'm going to start with light side first. So obviously with lighter, we want to start adding more of our lighter values. So to do so, I'm going to grab a little more of my yellow ochre. This is the side that I start adding more of my yellow. So I'm going to add a tiny touch of yellow and some more white. And we start to mix. Now, if you notice that it's starting to get too yellowy for you, the opposite of yellow on the color wheel is purple. So to make some purple that's more neutral, we're going to add a tiny touch of our ultramarine and a tiny touch of our burnt sienna. Now those two together should help neutralize this tone a little bit. So that's still very yellow, just add a little more. And this is all about trial and error, just working little by little until you get it right. It's best to go slow. If you go too fast, add too many colors too quickly, you'll lose your color and end up going through way more paint than you need to. Alright, I think that's getting there. It's still on the yellow side, but that's okay because I'm trying to create a spectrum here. Alright, so now we have those. I'm going to actually neutralize it just a little bit by adding a little black. And I know that seems strange because it's on the light side, but remember, black helps absorb any colors that you don't like. So if you add a tiny touch of black, it's going to create a little bit of neutrality to everything. Much better. Alright, so now I'm going to get some of that. About half. And bring it here. I'm going to add a lot more of my white this time. And I want to create more of a pink tone this time to show y'all. So I'm going to add a little more of my burnt sienna. you can already see much more of a neutral, fleshy, pink hue to it. Alright, so I'm going to make it even more light and pink and fluffy. And this time, now that we're getting even lighter, we can add the tiniest touch. That's too much. Just a little bit of our crimson. I'm going to grab more white. This time I'm using a lot of white. And this is because I want to show you how to make a really pretty rosy tone. Making a little bit of a mess. This is a great rosy tone, especially if you're trying to create a wash, or a glaze. I've mentioned glazing in a past video, but you can see this one is so much more pink than the others. So if we want to create an even brighter tone here, I'm going to scoop most of this, put it right here, get it out of the way there. Grab this. And this time I want it to be a little more of a purpley side, okay? So I want it to have just the tiniest bit more neutrality to it. And add a little bit of that blue. And really, when it comes to the lightest tones, those are going to be the ones that are reflecting the light around you. So try to imagine what is going on in your painting, what is reflecting. And those are going to be the tones that are going to be reflected into your lightest hues. Alright, so now we have our brightest color. And obviously your absolute brightest color you can bring and add more white, you can add more yellow tones. So you want to add one that's got a little bit more warmth to it. You can play around with them. Play around, have some fun. This is a really pretty color for lips. Mixing in that yellow and those reds together. Create a really pretty highlight for lips. Right here. You can also come in and mix a little bit of this tone and make a darker color for lips. I like to do lips when I'm doing my lighter side, because they tend to have more of those yellows and reds that aren't going to be as vibrant on our darker side. So all I did was I grabbed a little bit of my two pinkest ones that I found. So I have my lighter pink, this is like my chink hue, and then my lightest hue that I was using here for my light version of my lips. And now I'm just going in and I added a little bit more of my red tones and some more burnt umber. Now we do want to neutralize this a little bit because it is supposed to be on our darker side. So we're going to add a little bit of black and ultramarine. And as you can see, this makes a beautiful lip tone. Alright, so now that we have I'm not usually super picky about how mixed they are, because as I'm going, they're going to mix anyways, but if you are very picky about it, get yourself a good palette knife. You're going to want it. Alright, so now you have your palette knife, and you just pinch and pull, and it pulls those colors right off. Now, like I said, my palette knife is old. It's got like old colors on here from forever ago. I apologize about that. I'll have to get some more palette knives when I get some funds, but for now, bear with me. Alright, so now we are going to start going on to our darker shades. So with our darker shades, we have our pigments here that we already started with, and we're going to start adding in our darkest shades here again. So adding a little bit more brown, add a little more warmth, neutralize that warmth with some black, and neutralize it even more with some of my ultramarine blue. Now I'm a little strange in the fact that I like to do a bit of neutrality in my darkest layers and in my brightest layers. So whenever I go in with my white at the end, I might mix a little bit of ultramarine into it. I just like to have that bit of balance to the equation. So most of my middle range is very warm. That means I need to go in and mix in some cool tones at the top and bottom to hold the middle. But that's a little rant for you. Right now we're making our bottom shades cooler. So we're going in. Alright, so that is a beautiful shade. Now I'm actually going to do one in the middle here. So I'm going to set this right here. And grab some of that. And say we want to have like a beautiful, rich, chocolatey color. So we're going to come in here and we're going to grab some more of that burnt umber. Grab some more raw sienna. And we're going to start mixing that together. And again, this is all about your subject and their tones. Just learn which colors you like best and how you want to emulate those colors. You can go in and add a little more. I'm going to add a touch of crimson to get that beautiful, rich, chocolatey color. Gorgeous. Alright, now you can tell that's even darker than this because we went through and we added some more shades. So we're going to darken this back up a little more. Grab a little more black. I want this one to be a little more neutral. So this one is going to be like shadows, things that are having trouble reflecting the colors. That's what we have here. Alright, you can see that's a beautiful, beautiful dark. It's almost like a charcoal brown. And then we're going to make our darkest shade. Grab a lot of black, some blue, a little of that color of course, and I just grabbed the rest of my burnt umber just so I don't waste it. And now I'm going to start mixing. I'm actually going to grab a little more blue because you really want this one to look nice and rich. And the more of that blue you add in there, the richer it is going to look. And there you have it. So if you're wanting to do hair colors, it's going to be a similar way. Just adding more yellows, some more browns, some more reds, depending on your tone of hair. But this is essentially how I go about doing it. I have from super white all the way to the darkest dark, and it is gorgeous the way that you can just mix and blend these colors. Just play with it, have fun with it, and now I'm going to have to do a piece that has these colors. You are finished. Once you have these colors all mixed up, you can start on your project. Make sure you have your mediums that you want to use. You have your canvas prepped, which I will be doing a video soon on how to prep the canvas. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks everybody, and bye bye. See you next time.